When do I start? Who's going to?
Okay, we're just going to say, good evening. Oh, is that loud, eh? Okay. My name is Renee McGurry, and I'm one of the co-chairs of the conference here, and then we've got 4 evenings of events happening, and this is number 3. So welcome, and I'll just have Darcy introduce, and then we'll start the evening.
And I'm Darcy Adam, and we're super happy that you're here. We also have an event tomorrow night called Honoring Our Elders, wherein we're going to be honoring 5 local Indigenous elders and 5 pioneers in the expressive arts. So we're looking forward to their sharing about reconciliation and how to move forward in a good way. So you're all welcome to attend. It's a public event. There are tickets on Eventbrite, and it's family-friendly. Children and elders are free admission. So hope to see you tomorrow night as well. But we're very excited about tonight. So.
Okay, and I'm going to let Kevin Lamoureux take over here. He's our MC for the evening. So welcome you all.
Oh, Buju, Anin, Ogama Maigan Indigenous cause. Migaji Nedodem. Kitchimegwich Nindinoe Maganadak. Niminoaya. Gaye Nimimundam, Iowanamangam. Minogishigad. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you, all of my relations, on such a beautiful day. I'm so thankful to be a part of this. My name is Kevin Lamoureux. I am the education lead for the National Center for Truth and Reconciliation, and I'm also the Associate Vice President, Indigenous Affairs at the University of Winnipeg. I'm very humbled to be here in such a big audience. I don't know how Renee talked me into this, but this is much bigger than I was expecting. And it throws me off because I was going to make a joke about having dated artists in the past and how crazy they are, but I'm too intimidated now. So now I don't know how to start off this evening. So maybe we'll just start off with a good way. I want to welcome you to this place. I understand that we have many international visitors and visitors from abroad. I want to welcome you on behalf of all of the people here to Treaty 1 territory, to the heartland of the Métis Nation, to Manitowabe, the place where the Creator sits. This is a place of great strength and great beauty and great dignity. Very troubled past, but many of us, as you can see here today, are working together to try to negotiate a space for talking about reconciliation. And art and artistic expression and being able to hear the voice of our ancestors through the art that we create is very much a part of that. And so I can't think of anyone else that could do a better job to start us off in a good way than Elder Lavinia Brown. Elder Brown is from Rankin Inlet in Nunavut. I've known her for many years, and I adore her dearly. She's got a kind heart, a good heart, and a strength of spirit that I think will uplift our spirits and start us in a good way. So would you please help me welcome Lavinia Brown.
Thank you, Kevin. I adore you too. I'd like to thank those people who invited me to this conference and for this evening's event to do the opening blessing. It's my honor to be in front of you here. And could you please turn the lights on so I could see everybody? Just kidding. It's okay. It's okay. I can't really see, but I'm glad you're here. the lights over here are really bright, but that's how it is. We go with that. We go along with the flow, and I'm glad you're all here this evening. Well, I'm going to do the opening blessing. And as I pray in my own language, I would like you to pray in your own way. Because you will be heard by our God, our Creator. And it's important that we pray together for the peace of everyone, and that we have a lovely evening and for the days to come. Because I really respect our faith and belief, so you pray in your own way, and I will pray in Inuktitut. That's the only prayer I know how to do is in my language. So could everybody stand up, please? Koyan naming nuna leokti guti iling nun tukseaporun iling nun saporun takwa tagbani tuluktan tagbani nuna jome tuluktan tuksiuti vavun kanu yakongelagun amalo sangenang men tunilautigun tamapta ilawudlo taikwa aksoroartun uvalunen anneartokotilin aksortun kanutuinna Wiritsaksimayun, tuksiutivavun. Taamnalu unnum saimartilloko, amma akagu, ungataagun, kakuguluktaa. Saimartitigun, uvagutamapta. Igvin, nunaliortiguti, piuyugavin. Igvin, angiyugavin. Igvin, piuyugavin. Uvagun, ayungittoron, kisiani ilikkun. Ayungittualugavi, ayungittutuugavin. Nunaliorti. Iling nutuksiartoon, inutsiaumapluta, pikannaritsiarta, inukatiitsiarta. Koyanname, nunaliorti, guti, iling nutuksiarapta. Amen.
Kianami, Miigwech, thank you, Lavina. You know, we're gathered here because we recognize the power of art for healing and for inspiration and to communicate on that deeper level. I've heard the music of the two women that I'm going to invite to the stage now, and I think you're going to get a sense of the power and the strength of spirit here in Winnipeg, in Manitoba. We're going to be honored with a drum song, and I'd like to please invite up Jade Harper and Chrissy Slater to sing for us this evening. Please give them a warm welcome.
Hello everybody. So the song that we're going to sing for you today, it's usually known as an honor song. It has no name. The song itself speaks for itself when we're singing it, and the good feelings that you feel when you're listening to it is exactly what the song is supposed to do for you. So here is an honor song from me and my cousin Jade. Thank you.
Wow, wow, wow. Oh, miigwech. Wow, it was fascinating standing off to the side and listening to that beautiful music and just watching the way that it was affecting the audience, physically the way that people were responding to that. How great is it to be together tonight? How great does this feel? Let's give them another very warm round of applause. Thank you, Jade and Chrissy. I was thinking as I was rushing to get here this evening about my own journey, my own interactions, my own understandings or misunderstandings of art. And I think that I'm very lucky in that my father was an artist. He was a musician. And we'd had a very troubled relationship. Our family, like many other Indigenous families, deeply affected by many of the issues that bring us to a point where there's such a desperate need for reconciliation. But I remember being a young man and seeing him on stage and watching him perform, and I followed him around on his tours until about the age of 9 years old. And at that age, I was young enough that I wasn't intellectualizing or even fully understanding what I was seeing, but I could watch, as I did just a couple of moments ago when you were listening to Jade and Chrissy, the impact that music had on people, the impact that his music had on people. And so I think from a very young age, I've had some sort of an appreciation or at least humility in the face of art and its expressions. Now that I work for the National Center for Truth and Reconciliation, it's become clear to me that art is necessary for healing, that art is an expression of our humanity, that art is going to have to be a part of this journey towards reconciliation. If not through the healing songs that were sung at the hearings where survivors shared their stories of having been in these awful places so far away from home, then in the healing journey now. The NCTR, the center, refers to itself and understands itself to be a child of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. It's actually one of our guiding principles. And being a child of the Commission and of the Indian Residential Schools Settlement Agreement, I've come to try and interact with the center in the spirit of reconciliation as it is our child. And as we know, it takes a community to raise a child. And so Canada is very much in this place where we're trying to wrap this child, this journey towards reconciliation, with as much care as we possibly can. And one of the things that we know about raising a child is the importance of being able to fill that child's life with beauty, with music, to sing to that child, to fill their hearts and joys, as mine was from my father, even if we weren't able to have the relationship that we might have had otherwise. I'm also thinking about, as I was driving in this evening, about the way that Indigenous art has been abused. And I'll tell you a story of this. Many years ago, working on campus at the university, which is just down the street, and this is the inner city of Winnipeg for those that aren't familiar with this place. And here we have a very high transient population, we have a very diverse population, and oftentimes we will get artists coming onto campus who are selling their art, Indigenous artists as well. And there was one individual, and I won't share his name, he's become a very close friend of mine, would come and sell his art, and this art was very recognizable as being of the plains, Indigenous art. It had the very beautiful flowing lines and the very interpretive images of animals and of spirit and of relation to it was beautiful. It was stunning. And people would buy or not buy in whatever mood where they happened to be in that day. But I encountered him sometime later, and he was on his way to one of the local art galleries here that supports and empowers Indigenous artists, and he was carrying a portfolio, and he was kind enough to show it with me. And he showed me the art that was in this portfolio, and it was immediately startling to me because it was so different than what I had come to understand of his art. And what I mean by that is that these were paintings and multimedia expressions of deep complexity. One was about a broken relationship that he had experienced and the heartbreak and the obsession and the turmoil that he was in. Another was an expression of his mother's experience in residential school. And it wasn't the typical representation of Indigenous art that maybe a non-Indigenous audience might expect. You with me? And I asked him, I said, why don't you sell that at the university when you come? And his answer was very simple. He said, well, because no one was really interested in buying it. And what it dawned on me in that moment was that people weren't interested necessarily in buying art and artistic expressions of Indigenous artists, because there was nothing more honest than the art that was in that portfolio. They wanted to be seen as having Indigenous art on their wall, which is an expression of exploitation. And as I grew and continued to pursue this understanding, what I found is that this is a very similar experience in Australia, the way that Aboriginal Indigenous art in Australia is used and is abused. I was just up in Iqaluit and I saw again how the art is consumed. And I recognized that colonization and aggressive assimilation, as we refer to it at the National Center for Truth and Reconciliation, has affected at times the spirit of artists as well. And how, what's the word? How we have to work as earnestly as we can as a community to protect spaces for our artists, for that artistic expression. If you have the understanding, as I do, of art, that it is our ancestors communicating through us to teach us, to guide us, to offer our healing, then there's nothing more noble that we could do than to make efforts to gather as a community as we are now, to protect, to nurture, to be able to honor that spirit. I was also thinking about an interaction I had several years ago now with Daphne Ojig before she passed away. And of course, Daphne is a phenomenal figure in the Canadian landscape, and her art is so easily recognizable and so beautiful and so powerful. And I remember when I first, as a young person, began to interact with her art, the way that it felt looking at it. And I don't know if I can describe it, but I think this room will have an appreciation for it. But it was a sense of pride, belonging. It was a sense of hope. It was a sense of beauty and wonderment. Very much the kind of feeling I get in moments when I'm outside in Mother Earth, enjoying kind-hearted Mother Earth and the love that she has for us. It was a very powerful thing. And I reached out to her at one point in time. I was working on a project for schools, helping teachers navigate and begin to approach Indigenous knowledge in schools. And I asked Daphne if she would be kind enough to sell us or license us one of her art, to be able, one of her pieces of art, to put on a publication that we were creating for Winnipeg teachers. And in the generosity of her spirit, because it was about kids and because it was about education, she gave it to us for free and gave us permission to share it as broadly as we can, in hopes that that would inspire other kids in the way that I had been inspired by her work. And so now I'm thinking not just about the need to protect the art, but I'm thinking about art as a way of reaching across generations and a way of showing generosity, right? Now, my own father, through his music, the only way that I ever came to know my father was through his music. The only understanding I have of my father is of his music. And that story, the story of my father and I, is very much a story of reconciliation. It's one of the things that draws me to working at the NCTR. But I'm reminded of the first time I seen Thompson Highway's Dry Lips play. And I'm thinking of that moment, for those that are familiar with that piece, when Zachary at the end of the play holds up his child with his wife while the spirits surround them. And in that moment, I had an appreciation or a sensitivity or an empathy for my father's journey. I had an understanding of the kind of father that I would like to be for my own child, who's 5 years old, who's right at the age that our family would have gotten a knock on the door to come and take her away. But now to be able to empower her with a sense of healing and a sense of pride. I think about the Water is Life painting that Christy Belcourt honored us with, that was seen so prominently as our brothers and sisters in Standing Rock were standing to protect water and the sacredness of water and the basic right of Indigenous people to exist, and how that piece became an expression of power and an expression of strength and love and dedication and courage. And I'm left with this feeling, as all of these thoughts are working through my head, that art is so many different things. It is strength, it is dignity, it is beauty, it is identity. It is a spirit of generosity that extends across generations. And it's an opportunity for us to be able to hear the voice of our ancestors and be renewed and navigate a path forward as we begin to explore a space for reconciliation. So I'm so grateful that we have the people that we have here in this room and across these 4 evenings to be able to share with you and to be shared with. It's an amazing thing that we get to be a part of, and my heart is filled with joy being able to be a part of this with you good people. Our next person that we're going to invite up to the stage is going to continue us along in this journey as we begin to explore digital stories and digital storytelling. And I'd like to invite up Lana Whiskey Jack to be able to continue our conversation and move us forward in this evening. If you please help me give a warm welcome to Lana Whiskey Jack.
I forgot to grab my phone for timing.
The phone is here, I saw it.
Just so I can keep within my time limit. Danse, Lana Whiskey Jack, Nitsigasun. Onukskoponik Otsenia. My name's Lana Whiskey Jack. I'm from Salt Lake Cree Nation, Alberta, Treaty 6 territory. And I'm going to present to you 2 digital stories I created. I'll show you my first one that I'll talk in a second about, but I wanted to just talk about the importance of Nehiawewin, Cree language. When I introduce myself in Cree, it's so much different than to introduce myself in English. The Cree, the root word for Nitsigasun, or the short kind of translation is my name is, but it really is about connecting to, the root word of Nitsigasun is Utsi, or Nitsi, my belly button. So I'm connecting myself to my mothers and the wombs I come from. And when I say Otsinia, I am from, again, there's that Utsi, that root word of locating where I live, the land-based I was birthed from as well. And so it's a different worldview, and I'm a child of an Indian residential school survivor, and so I wasn't taught my language at home in the many homes I lived in. And so having, you know, this ability now to learn the language, it's shifting the way I interact and understand the world I'm living in from that Cree perspective. So the first story I'm going to show you is I'm a recent graduate from Blue Quills University, or University of Blue Quills. And Blue Quills was a former Indian residential school where my grandmother attended and my mother attended. And it's also the first Indigenous-owned and operated educational institution in Canada since 1971. Also, one of my mentors, Alex Janvier, also attended that same school. And so, being in that building where language was beating out of the wombs I come from, and where they were told, you know, if they spoke their language, if they practiced their ceremonies, if they were to express who they were as Nehio, they would be on the road to evil. They actually had this pictorial catechism. Again, the power of art to remind them, if you speak your language, there is the road to evil and the road to good. And of course, a lot of the Indigenous, the Indians, as they were called back then, were on the road to evil. And so having that, being in that space of Blue Quills and thinking, you know, isn't that interesting where I'm in this place, I'm connecting to ceremony, I'm connecting to language, I'm connecting to who I am as a Nehio, as an Esquel. I get to, it's just a powerful place to be. So my first digital story, I actually learned how to do digital stories here in Winnipeg at the University of Winnipeg. They had a summer institute at the Oral History Center, and I was invited to come and participate. And it was looking at intergenerational trauma from Indian residential schools. And so it was in the time where I just began my doctorate program at Blue Quills, and I was unpacking. I was like, what do I need to unpack to be able to do the work in my community? And so it was really heavy week to look at the trauma I carried. And I had this theory, and I have to warn you, this digital story is I'm exposing the most vulnerable part of myself, and I'm speaking about my womb and the wombs I come from. And so it's pretty, well, I'll let it speak for itself. So if I can have it play now, and Dance, Lana Whiskey Jack Nitsigason. My belly button came from the sacred space of many Whiskey Jack women, Zapaanak, Nukumwak, and Nigawi, 3 generations that survived the failed attempts of assimilation and colonization. It was there in that fortress of extermination many of these women learned the shame of being in their own brown skins. It was in the shower room that so many young, innocent, precious areas were scrubbed raw after their first blood, as the stern voices of the nuns preached on how their bodies were dirty and full of sin. It was there in those cold, empty rooms, guilt and shame made a home in their sacred areas, all in the name of education. Iskwel, woman, Iskotel, fire. All women were once deemed as sacred beings, gifted with the greatest power to give life. Iskwel, Iskotel, the home fires, the center of the home and the community, the firekeepers that kept our people warm and alive. It was there in that brick building that silence was used to kill the fire of our powerful medicine through abuse and humiliation, my blood memory. I was born into shame and guilt. Nigawi must have felt disgrace as she kept her pregnancy with me a secret until a nurse from the hospital finally found Nukum to notify her I was born. I lived in the nursery for a month without being held by my own mother. My aunt said, I left that school hating the world, myself the most. I didn't respect my body. Why should I when no one else did? Many of the women in my family had been in abusive relationships. It was easier to accept abuse than love. Go ahead, hit me, Nigawi would yell when she was triggered. My first moon time, Nigawi held a feast to honor my rites of passage into womanhood. She raised a glass to Lana, my young woman. Then a male family friend slurred, she's not a woman until she's broken in. Laughter sliced at my innocent Iskwel confidence. I became a young mother, full of blame and shame, disappointing my family's expectation. When my first daughter was born, my self-worth slid into a deep, dark hole as her father pierced my heart. You are just like your mother. Finally, after my third child, fear overcame me that my sacred center could no longer carry the colonial weight of being a squaw. I resisted a hysterectomy for 6 long years, not wanting to give up what Nukum called my medicine. I was weak, pale from anemia, corrupt with the guilt and shame that my own woman part wanted to abandon me. I returned home looking for answers, only to find out Nigawi and Nukum both had long pink scars revealing the loss of their own Iskwel essence. I too had a fresh scar. My sacred medicine sang back into Mother Earth, wrapped in print and tobacco. I mourned for the spirit that brought me my children. I'm still searching for the answers, but do so with the knowledge and deep gratitude that I'm here, alive and strong. I, Iskwel, come from a long thread of powerful, resilient, courageous, strong, wise, brilliant women. I carry Iskotel, that ember to pass on the beauty of who we are as Nehiawak to my amazing, beautiful, strong, courageous, powerful children. My body carries thousands of generations of Iskwel spirit, Iskotel. So after unpacking at my diving deep into exploring intergenerational trauma, I realized that with trauma comes resilience and beauty. So my next work was focusing on intergenerational resilience. And I wanted to honor women that I knew and ask them, how do you define beauty? When are you in your element of beauty, and how do you maintain it? And so it was really interesting. I've asked many women, this is part of my research work, those questions. And majority of the women talked about their trauma first and how it was related to their beauty, being in their element of beauty. And so the next digital story I'm going to show you it's called MJ. And so the day we took, I do all the art in my digital stories. And so part of the process of taking photos and painting, I'm multimedia, mixed media, and of course I use them all within my digital stories. And so with taking the photos, it was interesting with MJ because she was really shy. And she's like, I'm not a model, I'm not this. And so she was like nervous of taking the photos. And so I asked her, well, why do you want to do this? What compels you to wanting to share? And so she was carrying a flesher, and I'll let her tell the rest of the story through this next one.
I brought my fleshing tool, my traditional bone fleshing tool with me to be photographed because to me it's a symbol of strength of our history, the legacy that was left for us. Not too many people do it nowadays, but in the day, everybody knew how to tan hides. Every woman knew how to skin and dress a hide and to make it into something luxurious and something that could be worn and something that could be a shelter and something that you could walk in. And to me, that fleshing tool does symbolize those women that had so much knowledge, because when you work with that hide, when you work with that tool, you realize the connection of how we are all connected, that without those animals, without those plants, without those trees to smoke that hide, without all of that, we are nothing. We have nothing. And so to me, it's a giving. It's gifts in giving. It's gifts in giving that we have, and if we don't look, we'll miss it. But if that tool to me symbolizes that, because it's from the leg bone, and if you can get the leg bone of a female moose, the front leg bone, that's strength. And I think about that. I think that's solid, and it's so precious. I'm gonna cry. It is. I'm gonna cry. As we laugh. I believe that we should grow old with grace. One of the reasons why I'm letting my hair grow out and letting the gray show is that I believe that we need to become strong women in the sense that we can show the younger people that there is something to look forward to, that we don't have to fear those dark alleys, in a sense, that someone is just out to get us, that we have strength, and that if we believe in ourselves, and if we hold strong to those teachings and the grandmothers that are with us and those that are walking another path, that they are there too, that they're supporting us, that they're guiding us, that they're giving us something. And I think if we rely on that we do have hope, we do have more. and to not give into what the outside world, or our outside world, tells us that we have to become or have to, just because we're Indigenous. We are more than that, and I think we need to show that we are more than that, and in any way that we can. I think it stirs something within us. It not only does that, but it also, there's a ripple effect. I think that by this act, by growing my hair, and being strong and saying, I am who I am. I want to be authentic. I am Métis, and I know certain things. I don't know everything, but I do know some things. And I'm proud of that. I'm very proud that I do have some cultural and Indigenous knowledge. And because I'm rooted right here. This is my home my native land. So there.
When I'm creating art is my ceremony. I go into a different place where I'm connecting with my spirit and to the spirits of others. And so I give great gratitude to be here and share these stories that is part of my spirit. And I thank you all for listening, and hope in a good way I touched your spirit. And hai mistahaya nitotem. Kakia no agamaganak. Thank you, all my relations.
I'm a bit at a loss here. How beautiful was that, and how lucky are we, and how lucky am I to be able to learn from an artist, a woman like Lana. Please help me give Lana a big thank you once again. What a great experience this has been so far. I realized, Renee pointed out to me that I've been remiss in introducing my good friend on the other side of the stage. You may have noticed that there's a fellow opposite me doing some pretty incredible work over there. Please let me introduce you to Nirio 2. Let's give him a big round of applause. Nirio 2, aka Scenario. Nirio is a performer, a poet, a multidisciplinary artist, and a student in the School of Life. Nirio is quickly building a reputation for his photography, videography, spoken word performances, and the murals he paints in places like the Forks. And going a little bit off script here, if you have a chance to walk around Winnipeg, our visitors, our guests, our city is made so much more beautiful because of his contributions around the city, and you'll literally find his work all over the place. Nirio will be doing a live painting during the performances, and you can actually place a bid for the painting on the clipboard at the registration table, and the starting bid is $200. And just looking at the work that he's done so far, wow, what an amazing thing we're all going to be gifted with. I'd also just point out, and again, kind of going off script here, which I know drives the organizers nuts, but I come from the world of education where I work a lot with schools and with kids. And I actually got to know Nirio in schools, where he would volunteer his time and give of himself to inspire the spirit of young people. And I just want to say miigwech and thank you to him for that, for loving and caring for our kids. Next up, we have performance art, and it's my great pleasure to be able to introduce you to Do-hee Lee. And I'd like to invite her to the stage, and let's give her a warm welcome.
to be connect with you. Can we connect? That's okay. That's okay. Let's connect. Wait for everyone. Wait for everyone. Sometimes we don't have patience to wait for others. Let's wait for others to connect to each other. I'm gonna put your heart into my heart and pulling your heart. Pull it. You should do with me. Pull it, your heart, and open your arms and give to next to your person and putting their heart. That's it. That's the little action that we can take. This is the time to take the action, right? Right? Okay, I feel like you're ready, but your voice is not really ready. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm going to give you some little bit of voice warm up. What about that? Yeah? I think you're really ready. You are here from the beginning and you are waiting for really voicing out your voice. I have my voice, I want to speak. I have my voice here, but I couldn't have time to really speak. So I'm gonna give you time to sing with me. What about that? As a warm-up. Breathe and continue. So this is what we need to remember. This is the sound that they're waiting for us. This is the sound that they want to be connected to. Let's remember and use this sound with your heartbeat wherever you go with your feet and your body, and share that and let them hear that we're here for you. We are them, they are us, right? Thank you.
Wow, wow, wow. Lana talked about finding ceremony in her art. I think that Dohi and Lana and Chrissy and Jade and Lavinia have brought us to a very special place. And I'm so glad to be able to share this moment with you. Let's be with each other in intermission. We'll come back in about 20 minutes at 20 after 9 to continue our evening. Thank you.